Hello and welcome to another edition of GNet TV News Project In Depth. I'm Andrew McKeever, the news director here at GNet TV. It's my pleasure to be with you today, and also my pleasure to have with us in our studio two new headmasters, or heads of school I should say, of two area schools, which I think you'll find interesting to hear more about. With us today is Tim Newbold, who's the head of school of the Village School of North Bennington, formerly known as the North Bennington Graded School before it became an independent school in 2013.
Yes.
And Hearon, who is the new head of school at Maple Street School here in Manchester. Fanning succeeds Fran Bissell, who was here for 9 years, I believe.
Yes, sir.
And starting off this fall, getting underway at Maple Street. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. Let me ask you both, and Tim, since you traveled farther to be with us today, we'll let you go first.
Okay.
What attracted you about the job at North Bennington? When that popped up on your computer or wherever it was you saw the advertisement for it, what made you think, wow, I'd be a good fit for that place?
It actually, my former head of school actually approached me about it. He had gotten a listing from basically a search committee, a search firm, and they had this great opportunity. And he and I had had many conversations about what I was looking for down the line, what I'd like for me and my family, for my professional goals, and then for my family. And it's a school that size-wise I think was really attractive to me. The part of the country, as far as being in Vermont, it's one of the places that Amy and my wife and I had always thought we'd want to land. It provided just a really great feel as far as a pre-K through 6 school. Felt really good to me, and for my kids, I have 3 kids, all are now attending the school, and it was just a great opportunity for me as well as my family. It just had a blending of so many things that met those criterion, which we look at our list, and when you tick off all the boxes, it just made it sound really perfect. And when we got over there, we fell in love with the school. It's just a fabulous institution with just a vibrant heart that you just feel as soon as it's palpable as soon as you walk in the building.
Yeah. Terrific.
It's great.
And Fanning, did you have the same experience, or was yours somewhat different?
Very similar. I was working over in Saxons River at Vermont Academy, so I was in state. And when I started to think about my options as well for leadership, I was looking everywhere. I was willing to consider a number of different opportunities, and it was with great irony that I ended up at 30 miles to the west. And I couldn't be happier. Maple Street's an incredible institution. Dr. Fran Bissell, my predecessor, left a wonderful gift to me. The school's in great shape, stable enrollment, and just a very strong community. So I just feel very lucky. It was very important for me as well to, if at all possible, stay in state, which is a great thing about this conversation. I was so eager to remain in Vermont, love Vermont, went to college up at Middlebury, and I've just fallen in love with the area and the people. So it was really a stroke of good fortune for me to land in Manchester.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit about both your schools. Are there some programs or initiatives that you are undertaking or are thinking about undertaking that you think are unusual, different, unique, or what you'd like to share with the viewers?
You want to go first with Tim?
Sure. Probably a shorter answer than maybe Tim. We're a young school. We're only in year 19, so we've had quite a role over the last 19 years of growth. And really trying to put this very special school together. Started in 1998 with 37 students, and to be now at year 2016 with 112, we've done a lot in a very short amount of time. We're very proud of the school we have. I think, and this is part of the conversations I'm having with our faculty and our board right now. It's a unique opportunity for us to actually reflect on what we're doing, how we're doing it, and what we really want to focus on over the next 5 to 10 years. So we're, putting that strategic plan together and just making sure that at this point in time, the school is the best version of itself, and that we're offering a compelling academic, athletic, and artistic opportunity for the children of the North Shire. Mm-hmm. So that's my short answer. There's a lot going on, and it's just great to be a part of it right now.
Well, I think we're in as far as we have a really long history as an institution, but we're in a new iteration as the Village School of North Bennington. It's only now in its 4th year, and I think we're at just a really unique opportunity for us to really think about who and what we want to be. I think we're really looking at our identity, where we are in the community and who we are, and how that fits with the community. I think it's a community school, and that's clear. It really is a village school that really works with the community strongly. I mean, and it was evident as soon as I walked in the door. I met with people from the surrounding community. Even in the interview process, it was not just what's going on in the school, it's what's going on at Bennington College, what's going on at the Vermont Arts Exchange, what's going on at the Highland Hall Gardens. And I met with all those people to really figure out how I could fit into that school. And the school, I think, is really trying to figure out, it was a great public school. Now, how does it become a great independent school, and what does that look like? Are there going to be big changes? We're really trying to figure that out, and I'm trying to help with that process. I think the big programs that I see are just some of the things that really set us apart. Is I do think we have an unbelievably vibrant arts program, and was in place before I got there, but I think it's something that we want to hang our hat on and really emphasize. We have a strings program for elementary kids. We have a connection with the Vermont Arts Exchange, and they come in and do all our arts programming. So the kids have 2 or 3 artists coming in and teaching them art on a weekly basis, and it's just a really vibrant place. I think those are the things that stand out to me, but there's still a lot to figure out as far as who and what we want to be. And with the political situation right now in Vermont, there's a lot of questions for a school like ours and where we're going to be in our place in the future.
Yep.
Yeah, I absolutely want to get into that. I just by way of background, though, for folks who may not be as familiar with the story of the village school, what drove that initiative for independence? I mean, you folks were a regular private, regular public school since I think the 1830s or something like that. And then in 2006 or 7 or so, I guess there began to be sort of an interest in seeing if the school could become a private independent school. You succeeded getting to that place in 2013.
Yep.
What was the driver for all of that?
I mean, I think the community itself really looked at where things were going, the trend in their region and across Vermont, in that small schools were sometimes disappearing and being closed, and I think they thought of that as a real threat to their school, and it really is the hub, the nexus of that community. It is the place that everybody comes together for special events, and it really is the heart and soul of North Bennington and Shaftesbury District 1, and people really feel that. I think the numbers were going down over time, that the number of kids in the building had gone down. I mean, at its height, it had, I think, well over 200 kids in the building, which is astounding to me to think about. Now we have about 130 in pre-K through 6th grade. So I think that was an obvious threat. I think also they wanted choice. The community really felt that choice was the best way for them to go in the future, and I think they would love to have choice, K through 12, but right now it's just K through 6, and to keep their school open, to guarantee that it would be there for their children and their children's children. This was a way to do that.
In a way, you're in a similar situation. You have to offer a better product, I guess, if that's the right term.
Well, there's the great problem is that there's a ton of great schools in our area. The competition is fierce, and it's not just the independent schools. MEMS and Floodbrook are 2 excellent institutions, and we've got the Mountain School in Winhall, Village School in North Bennington. We've got Long Trail, and obviously they all tend to end up at Burton. So. It's quite a community because it's very school rich, and there are a lot of options, and I think that's one thing that we've been hearing consistently throughout the fall is how great it would be to preserve school choice because it benefits so many. It's something that I think benefits both public and the independent school system.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, we've been hearing a lot about school choice over the past couple of months between Act 46 related questions, and then just more recently the State Board of Education came out with, well, actually, I guess they first initially pronounced those in July, but it began to seem to be, I guess maybe we all didn't appreciate exactly what that was all about until more recently, but there's been a lot of concern expressed recently that school choice is in some jeopardy if an independent school accepts public money, that they would then have to follow the same rules that public schools do in special education, teacher certification, and administrative certification. 3 areas I'm familiar with. I'm assuming there are probably more, and if you want to advise us about what those are, feel free. I mean, how seriously are we supposed to be worried about that? I mean, is this really, in your mind, something that could happen that could really impinge on that historic tradition of school choice in Vermont?
I think people are taking it seriously because it's such a threat to independent schools. And I think it has obviously become a serious topic of conversation, because you can't go anywhere these days without discussing it, especially if you're in our community.
I'm sure you can.
You know, it's just the topic du jour, and for the right reasons, because you know, if you see the excellent conversation between Oliver Olson and Seth Longarts that you guys did just the other day, which was fascinating, you know, it's a very complicated political and economic issue that affects southern Vermont greatly. So I think there is a particular focus on that here in this region, and I think it all comes back to the idea that, you know, historically and traditionally for over 150 years, this has been how the state has done business, you know, and I think the best question I've heard is, you know, show me how the system is truly broken, especially with independent schools. I would argue that this would be a different conversation if independent schools weren't flourishing in southern Vermont, but they are. And, you know, it seems that so much of the political conversation is about the changing demographics, trying to keep people in state, trying not to have the flight out of the state, you know, and I keep on hearing repeatedly stories from people in Manchester, in particular Maple Street parents, about, you know, they've made conscious decisions to move to the North Shire to attend a number of schools in the area. So they are bringing with them their tax dollars, they're bringing with them the possibility to create jobs, and they are the economic movers of this region. And I think if choice were to be dismantled or altered in some serious fashion, I think a lot of people would consider leaving the area. And that would be devastating for, obviously, the independent schools and the greater southern Vermont region in general. It would be a huge economic disaster.
No, I think the specifics around the rule changes that are being proposed are really, you know, interesting. I think we're in a unique situation at the village school in that we actually already meet most of those rule changes. So it's not going to impact us, but I am in full support of not putting forth those rule changes, because not every school is going to be able to meet those. You think about a small school, you know, much smaller even than our schools, accreditation is a really hard process to go through. And even NEASC, the accrediting body that Vermont has said would take on this responsibility, I've heard from their folks that they said, we don't know that we could accredit all these schools if that was all of a sudden going to happen, that they would just not have the people power, because it's all volunteer, for that accreditation process through NEASC, the New England Association of Schools and Colleges.
An important point is all these independent schools, the vast majority of them are already accredited, are already approved, and they're just throwing more rules at us for no reason.
But there are small schools that, you know, have 30 or so kids that fit a very specific niche that they may not be accredited in the same way. And for them to go through that process just may not be feasible. There's those pieces. The special ed question, which is a really challenging one. I mean, I'm a firm believer, and this is where the question of choice comes in, or an analogy would be, you know, the whole idea of equity or equality. We really need to make sure this is an equity question versus an equality question. It doesn't have to be equal. You know, the three of us sitting around the table, if we were to be given a jacket, you know, we all want a jacket to stay warm, but we want a jacket that fits us well, because if it's not fitting us well, it's not going to keep us as warm as we could. So the same analogy can apply to kids in education. Every school does not fit every child, and we want to make sure that there are different opportunities that fit those unique learning styles, and I don't know that every school can do that, but having a number of different schools and different opportunities and providing those choices for people gives them the opportunity to really find the one that's going to fit their child best. And I think that's a place that we really need to focus our energy on. The other things around just the economics of it and things like that, there's just some very interesting things that frankly, as independent schools, we should not be responsible for having to give out that information. We're independent, you know, organizations. We shouldn't have to give the same sort of disclosure in some ways that the public schools do. It's an interesting question for us to really wrestle with, and whether the state goes forward with those. There's going to be people who are rising up in fighting that in opposition, and the Vermont Independent School Association is right there in the mix, and there are a lot of legislators who are right there in the mix as to try and make sure that these rules never even sort of get to the point of having to fight them in any sort of a legal way, because they don't make sense for Vermonters. They really just don't.
Well, we'll probably be hearing a lot more about this on November 22nd.
I'm sure.
The State Board of Education is, at least at the moment, tentatively scheduled to have a meeting or hearing here in Manchester, and I'm sure this may come up for a discussion. I guess the thing that puzzles me the most about it is, like, why now? What happened? I know that one official told me that well, the rules hadn't been looked at again in almost 20 years. It was time for a revision. But it seems like what they're proposing to do really would create some issues for folks like you and others in the independent school arena. And at a time when the state is also going through the whole Act 46 process, where school districts are being consolidated or trying to consolidate, which is causing a lot of stress and friction, and as well as opportunities for cooperation. That's the other part. I guess I find the timing bizarre.
I think a lot of people find the timing bizarre, and it would be different if it were the legislature debating this in public, a lot of publicity, papers, editorials, and everybody being completely involved and in the know. But when this is done more or less in closed committee, with a lot of twists and turns and not a lot of information being shared, I think it is a cause for concern. And I think the more information that the State Board of Education is able to provide, the better. But at the same time, it does appear that there's a reluctance to really put this out there in the open and have an open debate on it. And that's the part that is mystifying to me. Why is it not being more of a legislative issue rather than a rules issue?
Well, speaking of Act 46, how do both of you sort of interface with that? I mean, Tim, in particular, I'm curious. Like, in North Bennington right now, are you in the position of having to find a dance partner, as the term seems to be, or another school district to merge with or consolidate with, or are you going to be able to sort of stay kind of, on your own pond?
I think our local district was really looking to try and make that happen. North Bennington Shaftesbury District 1 was trying to find somebody else to partner up with. And really, because of the uniqueness of our situation, being choice tuitioning K through 6, there are not many options to do that. So what they really were looking at trying to do was to try and expand choice K through 12. And that just became, it looks like it's untenable, because it looks like the Mount Anthony union, their high school union, that is really complicated to vote out of. That we could locally vote ourselves out, but then all the other districts have to agree to let us out to make that possible.
And that's Pownell, Bennington, Woodford,
Shaftesbury, and Bennington itself.
Right.
So that makes it seem like it probably would not fly.
Because that would involve them.
And they're concerned
that
they would lose a lot of students going to Mount Anthony. And they might, but I mean, we're a perfect example of most of the kids want to stay there locally. We have over 90% of the eligible kids, well over 90% of the eligible kids in the district going to our school. They're not choosing to go elsewhere. This is where they were already going, and they want to continue to go there. So I would suspect they'd still want to go to, continue to go to Mount Anthony High School, Mount Anthony Union High School. But so right now it looks like the talks right now, the committee had formed and then it sort of disbanded and now is reformed as an exploratory committee again. And right now the talk that they're coming up with is the creation of sort of the term is MUD, a modified unified union district, which seems just about as clear as that. Is that and in that it looks like North Bennington Shaftesbury District 1 would still basically be exactly where they are in that larger unified district. That not much would change. So it's interesting that they're going to have to go through this process when maybe almost nothing will change except the districts themselves will have less input into the whole model. So it's interesting, and but I think that's where things are leaning right now. But it's still a work in progress. I think that the toughest thing I see with this is I don't know that there was a clear vision as to what they wanted the outcome to be across the state. I think if they had said, oh, we're putting Act 46 into place, we'd like you to do this, this, and this, then districts could go, oh, okay, we can see the path ahead, or we can see how to get there.
Right.
They just said, we want you to change, but we're not going to really explain what that needs to look like in the end. We're going to give you these preferred models, but then there's all these complicated pieces in place. So it's a really complicated and
I'm assuming that
challenging
the reason
issue.
they probably didn't want to connect all the dots was that they wanted to leave it up to the locals to figure it out themselves, so they had ownership of the whole process.
But the timeline is so short, it makes it hard for them to really, like, you have to do it by such and such a date, otherwise you don't qualify. So they're panicking. Yet I don't know that they have enough time to really figure out what the best vision long term is.
Or to gain consensus on
Absolutely
certain major decisions.
Oh yeah.
So I'm curious, Randy, I mean, Maple Street is also in kind of an interesting position vis-a-vis Act 46. It's just last night, we're here on Tuesday, November 15th, and last night in Floodbrook School on the 14th, the Merger Study Committee voted to approve their plan that they're going to submit to the state board. If the state board approves that plan, it'll come back to voters here. But that has Manchester, Dorset, Sunderland, Mount Tabor, Danby, and the Mountain Towns Red combining into a K through 8 district. I mean, are there any concerns that you guys will now struggle with getting students that you might have gotten had the status quo remained? Or
I don't think we have concerns, because we believe that competition is, I mean, this is the marketplace, and we're very confident about where we are. We've come so far so fast, and again, we don't feel like we're really competing against anybody right now except ourselves. We really want to be the best school that we can be, and we have a lot of room for growth in terms of both program, and we don't have a ton of growth in terms of our student population. We have a cap actually that's probably about 125, 130. So we're not looking to grow, into some beast. We just want to be the best Maple Street that we can be, and we have time to figure that out. And again, we're very fortunate in that we have currently we have 112 students from 19 different surrounding towns, and I think that speaks very highly of how choice is working effectively, because of those 19 towns, I bet kids are going in all sorts of directions. So we're just very fortunate that some families have decided to choose Maple Street, and sometimes Maple Street just works out because a parent who could live 15, 20 miles away has a job a mile away from Maple Street, and so it works out. So we're not that concerned, but at the same time, there's so much going on and there's so much uncertainty that we're always keeping aware of the situation. Part of I guess one of the things I've enjoyed most about this job so far is just doing a ton of outreach. And going to Manchester Elementary and seeing for myself what's going on at that great school and meeting the good people who work there. And then on Friday, I'm going to go sit down and talk to Neil McIntyre at Floodbrook. I'm going to Long Trail. I'm going to the Mountain School. I've been to the downtown school in Manchester. And so I'm reaching out to all the people. I think connections are important, but also I think it really, again, speaks to that Vermont ethos of that we're all in this together. And what is working for you is great, and I'm not looking to copy or steal that, but I'm fascinated. What works well for you? And let's have that conversation about what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are you worried about? And it's really important to get that synergy amongst educational professionals, and so there isn't this sort of sense of competition or fear or
zero-sum game or something.
Yeah, I mean it's just difficult because we tend to be small schools, and one or two students can shift the calculus pretty seriously for us in terms of a budget, but it's just a unique. Again, I lived in another part of the state, and I'm just fascinated by again how school rich the Manchester area is, Manchester and Bennington, and it's just a unique place, and that is why the conversation, to get back to one of your questions, is so intense, because I don't understand why anyone who has been to our region and to see how successful the independent and public school sort of ecosystem is, why anyone would want to dismantle that. Because I think any dismantling of the independent school system is going to have a major ripple effect, I think negatively also on the public school system. It doesn't seem to be a well thought out or executed plan at this point in time. And I'm obviously hopeful that it will resolve itself, but we're doing okay right now.
All right.
We're doing okay.
Well, I want to end our conversation on a upbeat, positive note after all this, concern about the politics. But I guess I wanted to give you both a chance to say, give us an example of one thing that you're really excited about that's happening at your school that you think is like really, that maybe folks don't know about.
Sure.
That doesn't make it into the paper somehow or another. Sure. Shockingly, as that may sound.
I guess, well, we actually have, knock on wood, we have a great relationship with our local news outlets, so a lot of stuff does get into our local papers. In fact, we were just on the cover of the banner on Friday over the weekend because we participated in the Veterans Day parade down in Bennington. We were in session that day. We then had an assembly inviting veterans into our school and really honored their work and their commitment to this nation. And it was really, it's exactly what, the school prides itself on. It's a community school. It invited the community and we celebrated the community. We went out into the community to celebrate them. And I think that's really what our school is all about. Every day, day in and day out, through small things and big acts like this one. The school, I think, is such a, you walk in the door and the kids are smiling, they're happy, and I think that's really what it's all about. If the kids are happy, the community is happy, the school is successful, and that's what I think we pride ourselves on. As far as specific program, like everywhere, we're trying new things. I think there's a lot of room for growth in a lot of respects, but I think it's a really great and unique school, and I want to make sure we continue on our path, and we'll discover it as we move along and come up with really a common vision of what it's going to look like down the road.
Yeah. At Maple Street, obviously it's a very balanced curriculum, very strong academically, but we're also very proud of our Flourishing Arts program. Any visitor to our school always remarks on the incredible art on our walls. Basically, our school is a gallery for student art. It's incredible. And then you get down to the other end of the hall, and you'll hear French coming out of one room, and then you'll hear the beautiful choral students singing and the music going. But then across the hall is the science lab where they're doing robotics and getting into some STEM-related exercises. So I just love the balanced curriculum. You include a strong athletic program in that as well. But what I think is a fascinating piece to that puzzle is specifically related to the conversation that everybody's been having this week is, for example, we have a Courage to Care program, and we were just having this conversation amongst the faculty this week. What an interesting moment for us to refocus on this one aspect of what we do. And the Courage to Care program is exactly what it is, how it expresses itself. Is we are trying to teach kids that it's all about respect. And it's all about tolerance, and it's all about understanding the other person's perspective and point of view, and showing that you care and that you are willing to put yourself in their shoes and try to understand their experience. Empathy is a big buzzword these days in education for all the right reasons, especially looking at the divisive nature of this recent political campaign. So it's one of those things where so many of my friends in different industries I think are sometimes oh my God, the sky is falling, and you may think it is, but if you spend a day in one of our schools, there's so much hope, and it's just such a joyful place to work. And when you see these kids, as Tim said, coming to school with a smile on their face, excited to share their recent, academic discovery with you, it really gives you a sense that everything is going to be okay, and we're hopeful for the next generation. And that's the beautiful privilege that we have, is to be able to work with kids and to work with amazing educators who are so dedicated to our communities.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there, I guess.
Thank you.
But I wanted to thank you both for taking the time to come down and share those thoughts with us. Fanning Hearon, the new head of school at Maple Street School in Manchester, Tim Newbold, the head of school at the Village School in North Bennington. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Andrew.
You're very welcome, and thank you.
Thank you for being with us as well. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you again the next time when GNAT TV News Project In Depth returns with another interesting interview. So until then, have a good day.
Thank you.